Good morning. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Take your seat, please.
Thank you, sir.
Vidushi Singh. Vidushi, you are from Faizabad,
Yes, sir.
but you did your graduation from SRCC,
Yes,
Delhi. Yeah. Did you do your post-graduation also?
No, sir. I've been
only
preparing for the
graduation only.
exam after 2021.
Okay. Then after that, you are doing this thing, all is preparing for the
Yes, sir. Full-time
civil
preparation.
services. Okay. Now, Faizabad is a very celebrated place. Everybody knows all over the world.
Yes, sir.
So one is always tempted to. Now the entire issue of this Ayodhya. Now the latest, I know a couple of people from Ayodhya, very close friends.
Yes.
So the Ram Mandir is almost towards the end. I mean, finishing touches. So, do you think this entire issue could have been perhaps solved in a much better way? Perhaps in the long history of this was one of the main bone of contention between a majority community and a minority community. Could have been solved with much more patience and much more what you call a bhaichara kind of a thing, rather than coming into this legislature and all that. What is your impression? I mean, suppose you are perhaps in that particular point of time, you were at the helm of affairs. How would you have solved this problem, or at least minimize all these fallouts, etc., etc.?
So during the time of Ram Mandir agitation?
No, I was saying the entire issue.
Okay.
See, the issue was there's a constitution, they were saying that there will be a Ram Mandir at Ayodhya, the birthplace of Lord Rama. And the Muslims saying that there is a Babbar, there is a Muslim masjid, mosque at that place. So we will not allow it to be shifted. Then the court had to intervene finally, and after long hiatus, and then this was solved. This thing. I mean, even now, this is I don't think there's a lot of goodwill between the communities, because they still think that it's short shifted. So even after of the court judgment. So now, instead of going into the court, always one person wins, one person loses. So the losing party always thinks you have been short charged. So instead of that, such a thing which is of such importance to at least some people in this country, you are the head, you are in a position to look at it from a broader angle. Suppose, imagine, hypothetically.
Yes, sir.
So how would you have solved this problem? Tackle this problem at least first, and then towards solution.
So, assuming that I have the position to administer
yes,
the community.
You are the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. Think.
Chief minister. All right. So, first and foremost would be my priority, according to me, would be the communal harmony of the place. Because Ayodhya, as has been known, it is actually susceptible to communal violence. So first and foremost, the building of the goodwill through adequate and constructive policy reforms. For example, there's an Amrit Dharohar scheme, which is a very good initiative which can actually build in goodwill from the grassroots. Secondly, on the administrative bit, I believe there are several provisions already in place and which have been followed throughout the years. However, there's also a need to sensitize the police and also make the public aware. So, because the entire issue that you have been was mentioned by you, there's also a need for police sensitization and availability of police force and accessibility, as has been mentioned by our Prime Minister. So, apart from these three things, I believe the point that you said about the legislative bit. So, because there was judicial judiciary involved, this entire procedure and verdict was
I am sorry, there was a very beginning.
Yes,
think of yourself as 1949, after partition. I am talking a larger time frame. Not when it has already gone to the judiciary and becomes a state, what you call sub judice matter. Think of it as not a sub judice, it's just there. I mean, so the people are thinking that should be kind of what can be done, because everybody says there should be Lord Rama's temple. Now there is a mosque. Even pre-Babbar Masjid destruction,
Yes, sir.
1949.
Okay. So I think by then the management bit could have been handled in a better way, as you
How?
had mentioned.
You are
Well,
CM.
yes,
That
sir.
time you are the CM Uttar Pradesh.
So
Undivided Uttar Pradesh.
yes, sir. So I believe first, as I had mentioned, I believe communal harmony was the way to go. And also the Panchayati Raj institutions which got emboldened after...
They were not 1949,
Yes,
there was no
sir.
Panchayati Raj.
Yes, but Article 40 was there, and recommendations were already made by several committees over the years. So I think involving the communities was really important, especially in a case as sensitive as Ayodhya's. And also, I think as far as the development of Ayodhya goes, Ayodhya has a huge, Faizabad and Ayodhya, both of these cities, the sister cities, have huge scope of development, which is now being realized after the overhaul of Ayodhya and rebuilding it as a tourist spot. So I think back then also in 1949, this opportunity could have been seized, and in a bipartisan manner, a tourist spot not just for the Hindu community but also for the Jains, for the Islam following people, Muslims. Also, there is a Korean heritage in Ayodhya, the Queen Huang Oak.
Okay, thank you.
So, yes, sir.
Vidushi,
Yes, sir.
since you have your optional was economics,
Yes.
how would you describe the globalization as a problem, as a solution, as a process?
Yes.
And so this is the first part.
Okay. So it has been argued by several economists that 2022 will be remembered as the end of hyperglobalization, primarily because of the poly crisis that has emerged over the years. So as a process, the last bit that you said, globalization in India's context, it has ushered in growth, economic growth first and foremost. And secondly, a renewed perspective towards the development story of India. So this is the bit regarding process. However, there are fallouts as well, problems as you mentioned. For example, COVID-19 pandemic was the biggest once in a lifetime century crisis, as has been mentioned by the economic survey. So I think the fallouts are that it actually got hyperglobalization and uncontrolled in a manner, and we could have probably handled it better by effective regulations in place. And sorry, sir, what was the third bit?
Is it a problem?
Or a solution, yes.
Or just a process?
So I believe it's not a problem. There are fallouts, negative aspects of it, which can be rectified with effective measures. So those effective measures, as has been argued, is one, the structural capability, the Atmanirbharta, as has been propounded by our government of India. So one is that. Secondly, multilateralism is also very important to ensure that positive linkages of globalization is followed. And thirdly, it's also really important that apart from the structural transformation and the multilateralism, it's really important to let globalization not be uncontrolled, have regulations in place.
Very well.
Yes, sir.
So Karl Marx said that the religion is the opium of people,
Yes, sir.
of masses. Let me make a modified statement and ask you for your comment. That markets are the new opium of people.
So, if I can take a few seconds. So, may I begin? So, market as an opium. Opium, of course, has negative connotations to it. So, it's really when market goes uncontrolled. We have had several crises over the years. We had Great Depression. We had great global financial crisis. And even now, today's the poly crisis, as has been termed by several economists, it is also a fallout of market forces being dominant over the regulatory forces.
Would you also mention market failures?
So there have been market failures, of course. For example, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank very recently. Even before that, the entire global financial crisis was one of the biggest predicaments of market failures. So I think if there is a need for balance, it's a command and control economy versus the market-based initiatives. So as we call it in development theory as well, it's a fine line between the two. And with effective regulations, with effective superstructure in place.
Is it the new opium or not?
So it can be an opium, but the efforts should be made to not make it an opium.
Wean away the people.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Right. The West slapped economic sanctions on Russia.
Yes, sir.
It's been more than 1 year. The momentum of Russian war in Ukraine hasn't come down. Can you evaluate for us the impact of economic sanctions on Russia and why they have not worked? Or if you think they have not worked, why they haven't worked? And how much have they worked, if at all?
So by and large, the economic sanctions have not been as effective as the West had imagined, because the Russian economy only contracted by 2.1% in the last fiscal year. So the economic sanctions, with the SWIFT system not available for Russia, and all of the other sanctions, if I have to make an analysis of it, one would be it wasn't as effective as imagined. Secondly, it has also ushered in the bilateral relations for Russia with China, as has been seen in the recent Xi Jinping and Putin's summit. And thirdly, it has also made Russia very susceptible to other forces as well. For example, the recent ICC arrest warrant against Putin. But also, the entire global world order has been in a disorder ever since the Russia-Ukraine war. So I believe the sanctions have not been as effective as were imagined. And secondly, if I were to say what Russia could do more, it would be...
Okay, fine. I got that. Now you answer my next question.
Yes, sir.
How do you see the global world order in 5 years? Since your first choice is IFS, that would be a subject of your interest.
So in the next 5 years, I believe the very dominant force would be China, because of China's overall policy reformation ever since its Congress has ended. The National Congress. I'm not sure of the correct term. And secondly, I think that there will be a very high prospects of the great power to the G2 concept, US and China. And they will be forming their own arenas all across the globe. As we have seen in the Middle East recently, the Saudi-Iran détente brokered by China. Thirdly, I think that there's a huge scope. The global South will emerge because of India vouching to be the leader of the global South. And lastly, I think there's also a scope. I'm not sure if this will happen or not, but I think that multilateralism, the reformed multilateralism, as India calls it, would be the way forward in the next 5 years if all things go right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you are from UP.
Yes.
It is expected that UP will rise, but the target planned is $1 trillion economy.
Yes.
Is it possible for UP to achieve it according to you?
Ma'am, I am hopeful that that might happen, primarily because the current policy structure of the UP government, it is currently laying down the superstructure by focusing on infrastructure and bringing in schemes that will actually expand the scope of the UP's economy in particular. So I'm not well versed with the exact figures of the UP's economy, but I do believe that 1 trillion target, although it seems over ambitious, but I'm hopeful that it might become a reality.
But is the environment conducive? What do you feel about it?
Ma'am, I think it is changing, one, primarily because of the ease of doing business reforms that have been brought in by the government. Uttar Pradesh now ranks second on the ease of doing business report by Niti Aayog. And also, secondly, because people want change. I come from Ayodhya and I have seen what people aspire for Ayodhya in particular. And similarly, that is the case with other cities and districts as well. So I think because of these two factors, I do think that it might become a reality.
What do you feel about International Gita Mahotsav, which was held in 2022?
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of the event.
Okay, no problem. Should agriculture income be taxed?
Ma'am, as a student of economics, I have a belief that any income that is above the threshold, it should be taxed. However, I do agree that there are certain fallouts of taxing agricultural income as well. It might lead to misreputation, and like not reporting the actual income. Secondly, I think also the current structure of agriculture in India, it's very informal in nature, and there are not adequate land records, and revenue yields are not present. So that might be an administrative difficulty for India right now. So before actually making provisions for taxing of agricultural income, we should make provisions and lay down the structure to enable the taxation.
Should the fact that it is dependent on rainfall be incorporated in the tax?
Yes, ma'am. It absolutely should be, primarily because the entire agricultural system, even right, it was anticipated that we will have a bumper wheat crop, but with the current change in weather, it is anticipated that the crop yields might face a lot of challenges. So definitely it should be one of the factors, and we should actually form a matrix of all possible variables that might affect the revenue yields and agricultural income for that matter.
Okay. Well, after selection, what steps would you take to make the girl child into responsible citizens later?
Ma'am, first and foremost, I believe it's a very behavioral concept. Even on the level of a girl child, every girl child aspires to be some equal to her role model. So one is that she should be aware that there are absolutely no inhibitions to her growth. So for that, it's really important to further improve the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme and bring in other concepts into it as well and implement it as well. Secondly, I think for the girl child, apart from the behavioral aspect, the overall administrative machinery. For example, currently the government schools, parents of in rural India, they do not let their girl child study for a longer period. So it's really important to let them know by best practices, by letting them know of the best practices. And finally, I think also there should be leading by example, as I mentioned earlier, the second point. And lastly, I think there's also the need for behavioral change on levels of parents as well. The school management committees in the government schools right now, they should be made more effective. And Anganwadis will also start teaching. And all of this can be incorporated in a better manner if the new education policy is actually if it is actually implemented in letter and spirit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Vidushi.
How old are you?
I'm 21 at the moment.
Oh, okay. Vidushi, don't you think it will be very easy for anybody in your office to manipulate you because you're so young?
Ma'am, I don't believe so, primarily because even though I've had no professional work experience, but I've had huge exposure through my college years. I've worked in the social entrepreneurship sector in my college, and through that I've learned a lot. Then I actually could have been manipulated 4 years back, but now I think that with all the experience that I've gathered through my extracurricular activities, and also through the entire civil services exams preparation bit as well, I think I would not say that I
When
can
did
be
you decide
manipulated.
that you want to become a civil servant?
Ma'am, my decision for civil services, it stems from my early childhood, primarily because I come from a small city, Faizabad, very quaint, beautiful town. And over there, it was always said that a district magistrate is the most powerful person.
But should that be a good enough reason for you to
No,
pursue
ma'am.
it as career?
Not really. Then when I grew up, I had several other reasons as well. For example, my fascination towards international affairs and economics, it really narrowed down my choice to Indian Foreign Service.
Okay, let's
in
talk about
particular.
economics.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's talk about some technical terms. Tell me, what is elasticity of substitution?
Ma'am, elasticity of substitution measures Ma'am, if I can just tell you the formula, because it tells how the inputs used in production function, how they can be substituted with each other in the production process.
Okay. Can you tell me the biggest economic crisis that the world has faced in last 100 years?
Ma'am, that would be the Great Depression of 1930.
Anything else? Tell me 3 of them.
Ma'am, one would be that. Secondly, the Gulf crisis of 1973, with the OPEC cutting down on oil supplies. It was also, it led to the entire decades of being high inflation global economy. And also third would be the global financial crisis of 2008.
Okay. What is quantity theory of money?
Ma'am, quantity theory of money, it comes from a Fisher's identity. It stipulates that the amount of money in circulation and the velocity of the money is equal to the nominal income of the country.
Okay, if you had to design economic policy of India specifically for MSMEs,
Yes, ma'am.
what 3 changes will you propose in the current policy?
Ma'am, one would be that there should be a convergence of schemes. There are n number of schemes for MSMEs.
This is generic. Tell me like
Yes.
an economist.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, you pick up any sector that you want and tell me 3 changes in the current economic policy that you would propose.
Ma'am, if I were to pick up textile sector, so I think one very interesting concept that I read about was special employment zones, very akin to the idea of special economic zones, which actually tackles the problem of unemployment and also brings in industrialization at a very localized level. So one would be special employment zones would also include the supply side and demand side of
But special
employment.
economic zones failed.
I'm sorry, special employment zones.
But
Yes.
SCZs failed.
Ma'am, but it was primarily because of policy regulations in place. The state's involvement wasn't factored in. The land records and the land settlement and all of these issues were the bigger administrative
Vidushi, is
challenges.
Ricardian theory of rent relevant today?
Ma'am, I don't think so. Primarily because it was given in the late 19th century, and it is mostly bits and parts of it are relevant today as well. The productivity of agricultural sector, and accordingly, and the production according to that. But it is a very narrow and presumptive theory, according to me.
Vidushi, is it time to do away with the Miss Universe and beauty pageants? Because you see, they're very shallow in the concept that they pursue. Do you think it's time to do away with them?
Ma'am, instead of doing away with it, I believe we should make it more inclusive. Even if we should make it not just Miss Universe in a very strict and, as you said, non-inclusive manner, but enlarge its scope, bring in more attributes to it, and bring in, for example, the body stereotypes, the body shaming bit. It's very normal now that we have models for in the e-commerce websites, for example, overweight models are also featuring now. So rather than doing away with it, I think we can make it more inclusive.
Okay, my last question to you would be, Vidushi, tell me what's your favorite food?
Food.
Yeah. You like to make desserts, I read.
Yes. Ma'am, as far as food goes, I think I love to bake a cake any day.
Why can't you eat a cake every day for all 3 meals? Give me some economic principle behind this.
Ma'am, one would be the supply of ingredients. Because if I were to eat all the supply of ingredients as well as
anything else? Think of anything else.
Economic reasons.
Yeah. Reason up which is based on principle of economics.
Okay. Ma'am, then it would be marginal utility of it as well.
All right. Thank you, Vidushi.
Vidushi, please wait in the waiting room. We'll call you back.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Take your seat, please.
Thank you.
It was what? Just relax. Feedback.
Yes, sir.
When is your interview?
So 18th of April.
3 weeks.
Yes, sir.
You'll be based here or you'll go back to Ayodhya?
So I'll be going back. But this was my first mock, so I might again come.
I come back and all
Yes,
that.
sir.
Okay, so it's your first box, obviously. How do you feel about today's box?
The experience in itself was very nice, but I'm not happy with my performance.
You're not happy?
So I think I fumbled a lot and
Yeah.
I spoke for very long as well. So-
Those are only a little bit here and there. But see, you are not yet 22. And this thing, so, and you're a fresh face, first time, you have a natural sympathy of the board. Board will all of them will like it. But since you are from SRCC, everybody knows SRCC.
Yes,
So their level of question may be a little high standard. Like ma'am asked, there will be some economic, there will be an economist there. Though there will be international economy and all that, you know, a little bit banking failures and what are the signature bank failure, the SVP, what are the capital CRR ratio, so all that details, etc., etc.
Yes, sir.
Banking system, monetary policy, how is changed, repo rate, but all that technical details little.
Yes, sir.
But apart from that, you are quite. The only thing is key where you are saying firstly, secondly, thirdly, but within that point you are little rambling actually, a little rambling, little less. When you are saying for point means people expect you are just a point, crisp point, crisp.
Yes, sir.
A little bit of crispness. I suppose SRCs will tell you LSR, SRC, they will teach you how to really present and all that.
Yes, sir.
So like that crisp, short, crisp points. So what to say, because you have all the answers in your mind. Listen, of course, you are listening very carefully. Process in your mind is computer. What you say point first, secondly, thirdly, fourthly. So max 1.5 lines.
Yes, sir.
Say if there is anything they want to expansion on that, the interview board will ask you. Ms. Vidushi wanted to mention this, or is I? But on your side, you don't have to explain everything.
Yes.
Point means point.
Okay.
Okay. So like that. And knowledge gap, no, you have, of course, we could ask so many things.
Yes, sir.
So many things we ask because obviously short time. Here, economic newspaper you are reading, I suppose.
Yes.
And main newspaper. The one problem will be that you don't get papers, and the papers you get, newspapers are very old, 2-3 days old.
Yes, sir.
That is because every day newspaper, every day this thing must be on your tips. So many things are happening all around the world. So you should not even lose sight of or track of even one single incident. You will lose track of one incident that may come. So like that. So this thing, and no, I suppose your delivery is so nice, beautiful. The way you are presenting your points, little hand movement. Try practicing before a mirror, a big mirror, because you don't feel, but somebody has told you not to make hand movement, but then since you are making a point, it's coming up a little bit here and there.
Yes.
So that little. So that just practice a little before a mirror.
Yes, sir.
Knowledge gap, no, I don't think. Ma'am was technical. Ma'am says
So I
excellent.
actually have to brush up economics.
Economics,
I have had a
obviously,
gap.
but
Yes,
then
sir.
ma'am says not major. So just brush.
I just couldn't define elasticity of
It's
substitution.
the toughest of all. That's why I
Yes.
asked you that. You could recall that it's a ratio, which is a good
Yes.
thing.
Yes, ma'am.
You said equation, because equation has to be converted into words.
Yes.
So that probably a public for words.
Yes.
You say, I make equation. Equation.
She's saying I can.
Formula.
I could recall. Yeah, I could recall the formula, and it was just not coming out in
Yes,
words.
correct. So brush up.
Yes.
See.
Yes.
And economics in all is fine. You have not done post graduation.
Yes, sir.
The Delhi School of Economics did go, but there will be some questions for the postgraduate side. Even in your mains also it might have come.
Yes, sir.
So all these things, economics obviously people will ask, and foreign service, anything on foreign relation, neighbors outside, all these G20, this thing, everything, Sustainable Development Summit, this, that, COP, IPCC, everything, what is named Quad, everything, think of your foreign, this thing up to. And not only that, right from the evolution since the starting of the Cold War, all that. So anything else you want to ask?
So I've been told that I speak very fast. So
No, that's why I said a little rambling actually. When you're saying points, since you really know those subjects so well and you have really brushed them up so well and you are very intelligent, of course. So that's why you just tend to get into the flow actually.
Yes.
So it is not it's not, you are not this thing in your SRCC conference debating room or the conclave or something. No? Here is a job interview actually.
Yes,
So never forget that. 30 minutes before them, those were 5 old men and women. So that's why this a little punctuated. I say a little rambling, but just flow. It's not a flow actually. It's a staccato kind of thing. Answer question,
yes,
like
sir.
that.
Okay.
And maybe it may look a little ugly from the point of view of this thing, but they want points, no introduction, no conclusion, points.
Okay.
And slowly points, frame in your mind, in your computer, computer of the mind, and then one by one, two, three, four. You will have all the sympathy. They want to help you. Because anybody with this thing, with a background and your present personality, they will like to help you. So I expect not very difficult, but you never know. You prepare ABC, their DEF comes.
Yes, sir.
So think on your feet also, that kind of a practice. Suddenly you can ask somebody, your colleague or something, so ask me something which is not your comfort zone, outside your comfort zone. So only somebody asks. Then is how you kind of react to that. You get few seconds to react. No?
Yes.
Like that. Thank you very much. That I suppose
Thank you, sir.
we must be in the top bracket, of course. Foreign service.
Yes, sir.
Future foreign secretary. Sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry. I've become very emotional. Actually. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All the very
Wearing a
best.
beautiful dress.